That works. That works. And it looks like we are live. Let's give it a second. Let's see if there's anybody watching who wants to say how the audio sounds. That would be fantastic. Welcome, everybody. It is the third Wednesday of the month in 2021. I know it feels like we just got back. Everyone already looks tired, but thanks, everybody, for listening in. How's the audio sound there? If you can give us a quick shout out on the Slack channel if you're listening in, that would be useful. So let's get started. I'm going to do a little intro about how this works. We're going to introduce the panel, and then we're going to move on to your questions. I know we got a lot going on in the world today, so if we run out of questions, we're going to go ahead and just talk about our favorite parts of Kubernetes coming up. Dan says that the audio sounds great. Thank you. All right, so here we go. Welcome to today's office hours, where this is our live stream where we answer your user questions live on the air with our esteemed panel of experts. You can find us in #officehours on Slack. If you're on YouTube, follow that text there down below. All right. Before we begin, let's start by introducing ourselves. I can't even figure out an order because there's so many wonderful volunteers today. So let's go with our regulars first and then our new people. So we'll go Chris, Mario, Pav, Rachel, Cyan. I hope I got that right. David, and then Pop. And if we mess it up, it's fine. Go. Kick us off.
All right. Hopefully I'm not out of practice on this one. So my name's Chris, Google customer engineer for Google Cloud Canada's public sector team, based out of Ottawa, Ontario. My background is mostly with on-prem Kubernetes and kind of the general Kubernetes ecosystem. So looking forward to today.
Awesome.
Hey everybody, my name is Mario Loria. I actually used to be with StockX based in downtown Detroit. I just recently made a shift to Carta based out of San Francisco, working on cap table management, investor relations. If you have stock options, you probably know us. Doing much of the same in the Kubernetes realm, DevOps, SRE, kind of bringing everybody together, focusing on developer experience and optimizing Kubernetes for our workload. So I have a lot of background in auto scaling, kind of pod lifecycle, and everything that comes into the developer experience of deploying from GitHub to through pipelines and into Kubernetes safely. So look forward to a great session today.
Cool. Hello, I'm Pavelas Varsatskas. I'm from Lithuania. People typically call me Pav. I'm a certified Kubernetes administrator, and I know a lot about monitoring, observability, SRE, and DevOps.
Hi,
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm Rachel Leakin. I'm a field engineer, Kubernetes field engineer here at VMware. My specialty, I guess, would be OPA, Open Policy Agent, and just general Kubernetes and cloud.
Hello, my name is Chauncey Thorne. I work for Phase 2. I'm a certified Kubernetes administrator, and I just pretty much manage their cluster for their developers. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Welcome, Chauncey. Welcome.
Thank you.
You said Phase 2?
Phase 2, yes.
Got you. All right.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sayam, Director of Technical Evangelism at CIVO, and I'm a CNCF ambassador, CKAD certified, and work mostly on Kubernetes and cloud-native technologies.
Hey, I'm David Mackay in Scotland. I'm a developer advocate for Equinix Metal. I'm a former developer, former SRE, now generalist, I guess.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Papandrea. People call me Pop. I am the lead for community and ecosystem for Sysdig, specifically the Falco project. I'm a certified Kubernetes administrator, as well as I run a little show called the Popcast.
Yeah, actually, both David and Dan run podcasts, and I'm going to ask them to pop the URLs there in Slack if you would. I enjoy watching these two, and part of the reasons they're here is I'm the last one to introduce this myself. I'm George Castro. I will be your host. I've been hosting this show for 2 years, working at under Heptio and VMware. However, I have recently left to go work at Unusual.vc and with the folks at Aricto, which you might recognize from the Kubeflow community. So I'm bringing in Dan and David to check out the show because we do want to keep the show going. So as some of you know, this show is run entirely by volunteers. So anyone that you see on this panel, it's a great way to participate. It's a 1 hour a month commitment. It doesn't even need to be an hour a month. We just need enough people to do the show. So if we have more than 3 or 4 people, we just slap the panel together on the Monday before, and then we get it going. So this is a great place to start. As I was leaving, I was kind of summarizing all of the things that we've done in the show and the amount of contributors that have started in this program and moved on to do things in other parts of the Kubernetes project. We've got an awesome batting record. So that is,
pause for a second and just give you props, man. Like honestly, like everybody in the, that's watching it, like, dude, you are just, how much I love that. all of us do, dude. And props to you for all you've done, man.
Yeah.
Love you, buddy.
And audience, this has all been possible for you. We've actually had some rough episodes. We had an episode where Mario was the only person here, and I had to answer questions from the audience by himself for 45 minutes. And that was not awesome. But, we power through. We make it through. Speaking of powering through.
I learned how to defer work. Sorry. I learned deferment in that meeting and how to put it on other people to solve questions and problems for me. And to your point, Pop, George is what brings it all together. Like all of our fancy titles, all the stuff we do, George is the guy, and thanks to him. And everyone, give him some hearts on Slack, please. And I'll let him get to the show now. Sorry.
Awesome. All right, and you know how we're gonna do this? We're gonna help a lot of people today with Kubernetes. Here's how it goes. For those of you who are new, we're just gonna go over the ground rules real quick. If you have your questions already, feel free to start typing them in the channel. And what we'll do is we'll put them in a little queue, and then we will answer them as we get the time. At the end, we'll grab all the URLs and put it together, and it'll be nice. So before we start, here are the ground rules. This is a Kubernetes event, so the code of conduct is in effect, so please be excellent to each other. This is also a judgment-free zone. Everyone had to start from somewhere, so you can help out your buddy by having a supportive environment in the channel. And we don't consider any question too easy or too simple or things like that. So please just remember that everyone has different skill sets. This is a very complicated piece of software, and the ecosystem around it can be very complicated. So everyone has to start somewhere. So we try to have a positive environment here. And while we will do our best to answer your questions, the panel doesn't have access to your cluster. So live debugging is going to be off topic, but we will do our best to get you moving down the next step that you want to be. So we're not going to SSH into your cluster and go dig around and things like that. But what we will do is tell you about the components and where to look so that you can find whatever the next step is to solve your problem.
Siam is a miracle worker, so maybe there's just a chance he'd be
maybe after the show, if you DM him, send him gifts, he might go to your jump host.
Easily bribed is what you're saying, George.
Easily
right?
bribed. Easily bribed. Yeah, and panelists, you're encouraged to expand on your answers with your experiences and pro tips. As we answer questions, you'll all dive in. I'll kind of MC the whole thing, but what people want to hear is your production experiences, your failures, just anything about a given topic. That's why we have we have this. We're not here to kind of show off how great we are, things like that. We're here to talk about the real stuff that people deal with day to day. Audience, you can help us out by pasting in URLs to your official docs, blogs you might have seen, or anything that might be relative to the topic at hand. One of the best things about being on this show is every single week, someone from the audience, when we're talking about something, people are whacking in URLs to GitHub repos of stuff. And we find a new tool just about every month that someone else hasn't heard of. That's awesome. That's powerful. That's really great. And what I do is at the end of the show, I grab all the URLs and we stick them in the show description with the hope that someday, someone who's stuck with this problem might run into a tool that helps them out. So audience, your participation is crucial. We love to see all these hearts and things like that scrolling in Slack. So please help us out by giving us the URLs and resources that you use. You can always post your questions on discuss.kubernetes.io. That's where I'll be sticking all the show notes and things like that. It's the top topic right now on the forum. And you can help us out by tweeting, spreading the word, and paying it forward. In fact, I am going to put my last tweet here with the show for today. If you want to retweet that, that'll help us out. And then lastly, this panel is made entirely volunteers. If you want to rotate in, just let us know. We love to have new people rotate in and help us out. Okay, with that, let's get started. I'm going to check out the questions here. Who's doing the questions, Doc? How's everyone doing today? I see someone's pasting it in, so I'm just going to read off of that. So usually what we do is someone from the panel just whacks all the questions into a document, and then I read those. If I have skipped over your question, just at me right in there in the channel, and I will get back to you. All right, the first one comes from Mustafa El-Bawami. What is recommended for an on-premise production cluster spanning multiple hosts? 2021, first question of the year. Always an opinion. Who's got a strong one? I'm going to assume that David has one. Who else has a strong opinion on bare metal? Let's see. Willing to bet Rachel does. Anybody else? Strong opinions on bare metal tools?
Yeah, okay. It's such a tough question. You know, bare metal clusters have a lot of challenges that you won't get from other, I don't want to say traditional, that's probably the wrong word, but, you know, other maybe managed provider clusters or virtualized clusters. Like, I guess one of the major challenges is the etcd component. You know, you are running a stateful workload on bare metal, and it requires tender loving care. It needs hugs. It needs to be nurtured. It needs to be backed up, and you really need to make sure you're drilling home those disaster recovery scenarios. If you lose your etcd, you don't have a cluster anymore. So, you know, really put in the time and effort to make sure that at least that one component is steady. You can recover from that with that. At least. So that's their first bit of advice.
Yeah,
Anyone
and
else?
just to add on, the bare metal cluster setup should go as normal as you do the kubeadm setup. So that should be fine. And there are a lot of blogs where people have done bare metal clustering and the HA setup, and they have also a few of the blogs will also mention. I'm trying to find them. Also mention their experience over running Kubernetes in production on bare metal and how that works. So monitoring is another very big piece that you have to take care when you're running on bare metal and not the managed services, because that is where your things go wrong, and you need to think like what happens when, and you need to predict the failures. So all these things play a very important role. So you have to have proper monitoring on your etcd and on the cluster. And the setup should be fairly, I mean, we should not say simple, but it should be fairly in the steps that they are in the kubeadm, and the networking should be taken care very precisely in the bare metal.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple more challenges worth mentioning with a bare metal cluster. If you're going to be doing a highly available control plane, you're going to have to be comfortable with, you know, virtual IPs and being able to distribute your traffic to the leader of the control plane. CSI is obviously a challenge. People generally want to run stateful workloads on the Kubernetes cluster, whether that's advised or not. But, you know, look at the static provisioner from the Kubernetes 6 repository, which provides a way to expose your NVMe and other super fast disks from the bare metal to Kubernetes that way. And if you want to go with something replicated, distributed, you know, you've got really great projects like OpenEBS, Rook, Ceph, etc. They're going to try and, I don't think we're at the point of commoditizing bare metal disks yet, but we're definitely along the path to making it a lot easier to consume and provide.
Anyone else?
Oh, yep. I know Packet, now I think they've been acquired, but Packet I know is doing a lot in that bare metal space for Kubernetes. So I'll throw that out there. I'll shoot a link into the doc.
That's you now, David, right?
Yeah, that's who I work for. I was trying not to like get too specific on our implementation and mention my own company.
Yeah.
But yeah, I work for Equinix Metal, the bare metal cloud formerly known as Packet. And you know, I spend all of my days, every day fighting bare metal Kubernetes clusters. Sorry, having fun with bare metal Kubernetes clusters. So.
Are there different considerations on bare metal for things like running etcd? Like, do you have like a separate etcd instance, like set of etcd clusters, or do you run them with a control plane? You don't share them between clusters, right? Is
no,
like...
definitely not. No, no. I would never share my etcd across multiple clusters.
That's what I wanted
whether
you to say.
You want to run etcd on dedicated hardware outside of your cluster is entirely up to you. I do generally prefer to keep it as part of the control plane. I'm trying to stick to the same type of deployment that the cluster API would give us. I think what they're promoting and the tooling that they're providing is what we should be aiming to replicate, if not using the cluster API, and then adopting those same patterns as well for our own bare metal clusters.
Okay, and I will get you the cluster API quick start for all of you, those of you that want to
Shout
check
out
that
to
out.
Jason D. Tiberius on that amazing resource in the community. Yeah, again, kind of my 2 cents on bare metal. I've seen a lot of implementations and I think again, I definitely agree with the stateful workloads. There, your storage paradigms have to be figured out. Your monitoring paradigms definitely have to be figured out. In terms of high availability, networking decisions are key. If you're doing something incorrectly, you can basically kill a bare metal cluster versus if you had a managed cluster through like one of the the hyperscalers. They're going to think of that for you, right? And so definitely those considerations need to be there.
Any load balancer recommendations? Is like I'm a metal. Is there a default? Is it like Metal LB or?
Yeah, Metal LB seems to be the most for on-prem implementations.
Yeah, so Metal LB is very popular. It's not really maintained anymore and not something that we as Equinix Metal promote too much anymore. There is another project called KubeVip by Dan Finneran, formerly VMware. He's also now at Equinix Metal, which aims to provide BGP supported load balancing and virtual IPs, which is a really, really cool project, works really well and worth checking out.
Interesting. I never even seen this. Okay, cool. I put it in the Slack channel there so people can check it out.
And I guess one more kind of option for people running bare metal, if you're not familiar with the Tinkerbell project, there's the CNCF sandbox project for provisioning bare metal machines, and it's going to help you along the way. There's also CAP-T, which is a work in progress, which is a cluster API implementation on top of Tinkerbell. So lots of really cool projects and movement in the bare metal space.
I am shoveling them in there. CAP-T.
Rockcoat's taking over today.
So could someone get me the CAP-T URL while I move on to the next question? Because that one's not as
I'll get it
Googleable as it is. Awesome. So good to know. Lots of bare metal stuff. Now, Metal LB is that I should be okay if I'm using it, right? Is it just one of those things where people are moving on? Is it like moving on from the old Nginx default configs to like new stuff, or is there still going to be?
So Metal LB and KubeVip, they just provide like a single external addressable IP address for your cluster, and then you can adopt your regular Ingress routes from there. If you're using Metal LB now, you're still fine. Like you're okay. Nothing really is going to change. It's just not really moving forward at much of a pace anymore.
Okay, all right. Just making sure for those of you out there using Metal LB, I don't want to scare you too much. All right. Any other comments on bare metal? Should I even ask how upgrades go?
On bare metal?
Yeah.
With cluster API, it's a breeze. If you're doing it manually, you stick to kubeadm. I think we're all in agreement. That's pretty solid tooling these days. It'll hold your hand through the whole process.
Yeah. I'm a basic user, so I don't have multi-regional concerns or anything like that. And I'm finding kubeadmin is just perfect for me between kubeadmin and Kind. And Mindrunner says, this is the year of Kubernetes bare metal. Was it ever not that year? All right, next question comes from Dinesh Shanmugam. Says, I performed manual certificate renewal on my Kubernetes master using the kubectl alpha renew, all which did update all the certificates. Post that, I did a restart of my kubelet service, but looks like my cluster went down. I'm able to see my pods using kubectl get pods, but I'm not able to schedule any new pods. I checked the K8s API server and Docker container logs, and I see the following issue: authentication error, X509 certificate signed by unknown authority. Certificate signed possibly because of crypto/RSA verification error while trying to verify candidate authority certificate. This error is in the channel if you all screw up. Anyone have an idea on this one? I kind of asked Cardi to take a look before we started, but I don't know if we did. This one's queued up from over the break. Anyone have an idea on this one? All right, we're gonna table that one. I
have a hypothesis. I was just hoping someone else would pick it up.
Yeah. Well, where would you look? Let's.
So the API server is healthy. I think they said that the fact that they're running kube control and they can get the pods is fine. The kubelet's not healthy. It's complaining about an insecure certificate. That usually means that the CA cert is not provisioned properly on the machine, or maybe it's expired. Maybe it's not part of the bundle. Maybe it's not being passed through as the kubelet parameters. So, the first place to start would be probably looking at the systemd unit file, making sure your kubelet has the correct parameters that you need to pass in the CA, the certificate, and any flags that are needed. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but I hope that gives them enough to get started.
Yeah. There are any tools?
Also,
sorry. Go ahead, Chauncey.
Also, if he just updated just the API cert, he should possibly consider making sure that all of the other components certs are updated, the scheduler and all those.
There any tools in the space that people use to help, manage their certificate lifecycle? I know there's a few.
Typically, when I do this, if you deploy everything through kubeadm, then I think basically that command, which kubeadm, I think like rotate certificates or something like that, which will basically go and recreate everything for you and make sure that your certificates are up to date.
Anything else?
Let's Encrypt, I think, does some of that work. I mean, I'm not intimately knowledgeable on it, but I've definitely hear people using it.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to Achu Abebe's question. I hope I got that right. Those of you who are CKA, would you please share some tips about the certificate, how important it is? People ask about the CKA here.
I think Chauncey and I jumped all over that.
Yeah. Let's cover whatever certs y'all may have. So CKAs.
Yes, I have a CKA and a CKAD. I got those certs to pretty much confirm my understanding of the technology. It doesn't necessarily add benefit for my current job outside of giving me a little bit more credibility, but I use it as a confirmation to make sure that I understand the technology and recommend it.
Did you take them close together, or?
I took the CKAD first and then the CKA afterwards. And I'm currently working on the CKS. So I'm hopefully to have that before the end of the year at minimum.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the certified Kubernetes exams are unlike many other exams, which are basically multiple choice questions, or you have to type this exact statement in a Cisco router terminal sort of thing. So I'm someone who actually failed the CCNA, which is the Cisco Certified Network Associate exam back in the day, and got my A+ and a few other ones like that. And those really aren't practical. Right? They're more theoretical. They're more what could happen. They're more, pick one of these four options. The CKA, CKAD, CKS are all hands-on interactive. You are solving problems dynamically. And so I think in terms of the realism, what you get out of them is so much more. So I actually have my CKAD. I'm working on my CKA right now. I don't know why I waited so long. But again, it's actually more of like a fun challenge to make sure I'm kind of at a level and learning. Sometimes you never feel like you're really good at something, and then you go back and read a book about it, like a beginner book about it. You start at zero and you're just like, you know what, it was good to go over that actually, right? It kind of reaffirms things in your mind. That's kind of what I'm doing. And hopefully the CKS after that. I love the exams. And I really highly recommend them to everyone. There's lots of discounts that we're just kind of around with the holiday season. I'm sure there's more discounts out there that we can help you guys find. So there's a CKA exam prep channel. There's actually a CCAD exam prep channel in the Kubernetes Slack you're in right now. So definitely check those out, and lots of other great resources too.
I want to agree with Mario here in terms of the practical exam. I think it was one of the best exams I've ever taken. And, I had 4 years experience on Kubernetes, but again, like you said, having that beginner book, be able to go back and see practical examples. You have clusters that and I can't obviously give you guys the questions, but basically you have clusters that you have to address certain things and deploy certain pods. It's fantastic. And again, shout out to our boy Siam here. He and Waleed, Waleed is one of the greatest resources out there in terms of just, putting together all of this data about all of the exam questions, where to study and all that. I think everybody who probably passed their CK in this panel has probably used a Waleed, resource. But Siam and Waleed literally attacked every part of it. It is one of the most useful YouTube things webinars I've ever seen. So Siam, props on that, man.
Also, when you're taking the test, make sure that you pay very close attention to the questions and follow the context and suggestions, because you could end up troubleshooting on the wrong cluster, and that's not something that you really want to do. So
And they provide the context in the thing, so you could basically copy paste it. And the other
copy paste, yes.
useful thing is the cheat sheet, right? The cheat sheet having aliasing, again, really super useful. Instead of having to do kubectl, having to type K is much more simple, especially when you have a time restraint. So
yeah, ensure that your environment is stable, also that your desk is clear and all that stuff there. They have you showing your room, so make sure all that's there. Make sure that you've taken care of everything prior to starting the test.
Yeah, they take the cheating very seriously there.
You don't just clear your desk. You literally have to remove everything and put it in a drawer, get it out of the room. Be prepared to move your laptop camera about if you can, to show them the environment. And remember, you're allowed the Kubernetes documentation open. That's an invaluable piece of advice over there.
they had me confiscate my whiteboard that had all the answers that was right here.
Yeah.
Also, one other thing, it takes they have all of your little icons across the bottom. They force you to get rid of them all except for like two: the browser and your one additional one. So you be prepared to have your workstation slightly disrupted.
Yeah.
What I found helpful was I created a new user profile to take the exam, so I just kind of locked that down to their specifications, so I didn't have to modify all my own environment to meet their needs.
That's a great idea.
Another thing I found really helpful was spend a lot of time in the docs beforehand, because while you do have access to it, you want to know where those answers are generally ahead of time, so you don't spend all your time searching through the docs to find the answer you need. So if you understand the structure of the Kubernetes documentation, it makes it a lot easier to get the answer and not waste time through the search.
Yeah. Just to add on, you can bookmark as well. So bookmarked helped me a lot. I did bookmark a lot of things directly. Like if I have to create a PV, I have a PV already bookmarked. I don't have to go in the search. So you can bookmark and one tab is allowed. So you close the tab, open the bookmark, and you are directly into the place where you can just copy paste the PV and PVC and some of the other stuffs.
Invaluable, like again, the Cloud Guru classes, the Udemy stuff, really, because the mock tests, fantastic. Again, I have no affiliation to any of those, but like the Udemy class was fantastic. Shout out to the crew over there.
Also, I would recommend that you read through all of the questions before you start, to try to assess which one you want to attack first, because if you focus on the important questions and the ones that has a higher percentage, get those out of the way, and then come back to the other ones. And also take advantage of the little notepad that they give you, so you can record the questions, make a note if you had any issues with a particular question, and then come back to it later.
All right, and I got a piece of advice. If you're going to make your own cheat sheet and stuff, do not post that on the Kubernetes official forums, because we can't see that, and the CNCF can see that, and they will catch you cheating. I hate that I have to say that, but please don't.
But you can't go to the discussion forums too. That's the thing; they block that, so you cannot.
Yeah. So we had to get that blocked. Yeah, we used to go in there and be like, "Wow, the entire people used to." I don't know what people do. Pavel has a follow-up question. Then, what's the opinion and thoughts on the CKS? Anyone finish that one yet? That's the newest one, right? The security one?
Yeah, I just started studying for it. The course that goes with the cert is really nice. I'm about 2 chapters in.
Okay.
So
yeah, CKS CKS is pretty heavily focused on obviously security, and it's follow-up of CKA. So you have to have CKA first, and then only you can sit for CKS. It has third-party tools that the questions will come from. For example, Sysdig, Falco, Trivi, CIS Benchmark, QBench. So all these tools are, questions related to these tools will also be there. And you have to, the documentation is allowed. You are allowed to open the docs for these tools as well. So you are allowed Kubernetes plus Falco docs, Sysdig docs, and the other ones which are there, from which the questions will be there. And the resources, again, the Walid has a very good repository. Kim has very good course plus killer.sh with a lot of questions. And there is a series on Medium that he has started as well. So I think
nice.
Those are enough for the preparation for CKS.
Do we get a link to his Medium series on here? I want to make sure we have that in the notes.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, just toss it in the channel after the show. I'll make sure that's there. Okay.
Waleed is a global treasure.
Yeah.
For all of us.
Yeah.
Treasure, absolute treasure.
We need to get him on the show.
We do.
That yeah. Okay. Anything else on CKS? As Mindrunner says, wow, so many options for on-prem load balancers. Let's see. The next question comes from Vivek. How do I run GUI applications inside running containers? I'm getting an error. Is this a thing people could do in clusters? Like I've seen the Docker run, and then there's like Zoom inside stuff. Getting a lot of Jess Frizzell
Yeah, so I
vibes
actually
here.
linked Jess Frizzell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I linked her blog. This is from years ago that she did this. A lot of it depends on the system you're running on, tapping into the correct device. But I think it might be a little out of scope because it's not generally something you're going to do inside Kubernetes. But it is definitely is cool. It's not going to work the best. There's definitely going to be some things you're going to need to tune with relation to how those containers are using system resources and things like that. So I would really venture that you kind of ask the question, what am I really trying to solve and what am I really trying to do with this option? A lot of browsers have more isolation features and security features nowadays that it's not necessary to run a browser there, or it's easier to just kind of download the Zoom binary and get it going. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. But yeah, there's definitely resources out there. You can search GitHub for other people who have forked Jess Frizzell's containers and then made other versions as well. So
yeah, Yogi says GUI containers, probably misconfigured X environment variables and port mapping for sure. Okay, moving on. More questions on-prem. See, David, everyone knew you were coming today. Mustafa asks, what is the best practice to set up Kubernetes on-premise for an HA cluster of 4 to 8 nodes? This sounds similar to what we were recommending before. Let me expand their question here a little bit. At what point do you go past quote unquote normal kubeadmin? Like, when do you determine, okay, I'm going to do full on cluster API onto something? Like, is there a number in your brain, or is it just, do you always use cluster API? Can you kind of give us a TLDR on what cluster API is and why we made it?
I'll do my best.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hate to put you on the spot, but
yeah, so I don't think we're in a position where, for bare metal at least, maybe adopting cluster API as the default yet.
Okay.
There is a provider for Equinix Metal. There are some caveats about the way that cluster API works that makes, again, stateful workloads a little bit of a challenge. And that is that the way that cluster API handles upgrades is by destroying the old machines and bringing up new machines. So any databases, any workloads or state, whatever disk-wise is on those old machines is going to disappear, which means you have to have all of this tooling in place to either make sure that it's replicated, and depending on the size of that data, data has gravity, it's difficult to move. That could take a lot of time. Your upgrade process could become rather painful. So it may be that you use cluster API mostly for the ephemeral and stateless workloads, queue workers, and a whole bunch of other things, and then maybe run a node pool or just a separate cluster for your stateful workloads, or run them outside of Kubernetes. That's entirely up to you. Try and make the right call. If you get it wrong, fix it. Like there's no right and wrong there, I don't think. But cluster API is moving fast. Lots of really cool things coming. I've ran dozens, if not many dozens, of cluster API clusters, and I'm really happy with the experience so far to date.
Okay. That brings us on to Mindrunner's question, semi-related here. They're doing on-prem with console as a service mesh and asking for load balancer recommendations. So we have MetalLB we talked about. Kube VIP is are we missing any, or are those the two major ones? Is it worth looking at any other two? Any other thing other than those two, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, I think that I don't think there's many in the space, to be fair. I think KubeVip was driven out of a requirement for something to replace MetalLB now that it's not really actively maintained. The challenge with the bare metal load balancing is that you typically need a load balancer that speaks BGP. It has to be able to advertise to a local ASN or a global ASN where where the IP address routes to. So it's not like you can just pick, Nginx or HA proxy or anything else that you might be using in that fashion and deploy it as your load balancer for the cluster. It's just not going to work that way. So I do recommend people check out KubeVip. MetalLB is obviously a bit more mature, has been around a while. I'm not familiar with many other options outside of those two at the moment.
Okay.
There's something that I think is pretty cool. It's from a company called Netris. They do like automatic NetOps and things like this. I mean, it's more specific to like API calls to do like for on-prem and also cloud, like to do like actionable insights for load balances after the fact and stuff like that. So that might be of use. Again, they're very fledgling, but I'm seeing a lot more projects that are doing more like load balancing functions, or at the CNI level, like looking to include a little bit more of that functionality. So I mean, sky's kind of wide open, almost like eBPF functions. A lot of people just looking into it and growing and growing and growing, right?
Yep. All right. Long has a great question for the first session of the month. Is the recommended CRI for the future going to be Containerd or Cryo? Who wants to handle this one?
Oh, what's that hot potato? Who wants it? Raw code, come on, baby.
Let's see.
I'm just kidding.
Anyone have strong opinions on their
Can I
runtime?
do the Tywin Lannister? There's a tool for every task, and there's a task for every tool. At the end of the day, if you're deploying to something that's centric to that runtime, if it's Containerd, again, props to Phil Estes. I think they do an amazing job. It's kind of the default for a lot of the implementations that are out there, and from a performance perspective and all of that. But again, no Allegiant, CryoD, is another kind of runtime that's useful for if you're running workloads in Red Hat or beyond, right? It's like it's really up to how you're deploying your clusters and which runtime you're going to select there.
Do we know what what do the public clouds do by default on here? Do we know offhand?
Google's going to do Containerd.
Okay.
Yeah,
eventually.
Well, it's a choice right now. If you in the GK, it's
ringing?
one of
Is
the
that me?
options. It's probably you, yeah.
Yes. So EKS also is at least providing the ability to do Containerd. I don't know if they're doing it by default yet. I'm not sure what they're doing with the latest cluster versions, but I think Containerd is kind of where some of the cloud providers are coalescing on. Seems that way.
Plus, Cryo will more than likely just be an OpenShift. Well, not just OpenShift, but more than likely, if you use OpenShift, you'd be using Cryo.
Correct. And then like IBM, I think they're the first to default to Containerd, but others I think have that option, and I think it's either going to be I think AKS by default is using Containerd. So
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Because I think we had to compile that remember the Docker shim.
Yeah.
So we had to compile all that.
I remember because I forgot to mention Azure in the blog post, and I had to go back and edit it. That's how I remember that. Tanzu's Containerd, right? What about Rancher? Is Rancher?
Yeah, K3s is Containerd.
Okay. All right.
But you have the option to switch to Docker. So if Mirantis has said that they'll support Docker, so all the downstreams who are trying to match up with the upstreams, they'll also have to support Docker.
Yeah. And of course, the extra Docker shim implementation is now maintained by Mirantis. So if you really want to stay on that, good luck. All right. Next question comes from Pavel. Says, what do you think about the Elastic license? Does moves like this affect the Kubernetes users or future? I don't think it has any effect at all. What does the panel think? I don't care what license your software on top runs as.
What I've heard is only going to impact those who are using Elasticsearch as a product. If you're building a business around it, like potentially the AWS fallback where they have a managed solution, I think it's targeting things like that.
Yeah, I don't think the cluster cares.
Yeah, the SSPL license, I think, is really targeted at people that want to take MongoDB or Elasticsearch. I'm not familiar with any other projects that have adopted it yet, but anyone that wants to take those two projects and sell them as a commercial service or run them as a SaaS business, it shouldn't affect anyone that's running Elasticsearch or MongoDB on their own.
Yeah. I'm not a fan, but whatever.
definitely been a hot topic the last week or two. I know a lot of the Slack Simon people are starting to have these conversations and look at alternatives to Elasticsearch. And I think that's a mild overreaction. I think, Elastic as a company and MongoDB as a company are just trying to protect their income stream. And the large companies, they probably don't need it. But at the same time, we're moving away from this generation of enterprise licenses towards SaaS-based businesses. InfluxDB is a good example. Like InfluxDB Enterprise is now InfluxDB Cloud. Elastic are doing a managed cloud. MongoDB have Atlas. Like this shift means that they can't really get away as open core anymore. So instead, they're going full open source with this caveat that says, "Hey, we're going to give this all away for free. You just can't run it and sell it." And I think it's all right. There's obviously arguments about whether is it still open source because it's not OSI approved. But I think as an end user of those products, keep using them. It's hopefully not going to affect you in the short term or even medium to long.
All right. Any other opinions on this one? Mine Runner asks, I'm sorry I didn't get the name of the engineer with a lot of OPA experience. That's you, right, Rachel? What is your workflow with OPA? Pre-validation of YAMLs before they can get submitted to the API server, continuous auditing of existing workloads. How do we get the JSON submitted by our workloads to OPA for validation? I'm just reading up on OPA and prep for CKS, but this looks like a necessity for enterprise Kubernetes. I know last year we talked a little bit about how more and more people are using OPA, and we were talking about it replacing PSPs at some point. I don't know the status of this. Is that still a thing?
So yeah, for the latter part of the question, I think at the time, so OPA wasn't replacing PSPs, but I believe I just saw some email last week. I was on vacation, but I think I saw something that said PSPs were getting deprecated. So maybe that is, yes, maybe most likely OPA will come in and take in that place. But at the time when we were having this discussion, right, OPA, you could use both PSPs and OPAs when necessary. It wasn't either or. But now we'll see, I guess, yeah, if PSP is getting deprecated, then yeah, OPA will be the preferred way to go when you need to kind of put up some guardrails, as we say, policy enforcement, things like that. I heard there's another tool that's coming out that's kind of out. I haven't played around with it yet. It's also in the, I think it's in the sandbox stage for CNCF, Kubernetes. So,
Kubernetes, yep.
Yeah, not to confuse anyone else, but just that's another thing that's out there that I have to go and check out regarding that policy enforcement. So that was for latter half. I do see a lot of companies using OPA. It's just, it comes up every time I have a customer meeting regarding that space. It's like OPA. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to throw down some plates. But so yeah, I definitely think I like using it. I think it works well. And I personally liked it better than PSPs to accomplish what I needed to accomplish, but that's just a personal preference. In terms of the workflow, I'm trying to figure out, do they mean like OPA's workflow or they said your workflow? So I was wondering which for me, my brain, when you say yours, I thought maybe how I develop policies, but I'm assuming they're leaning more towards how OPA works in a Kubernetes cluster.
Are you using conf test at all, Rachel, for pipeline validation, or?
Not yet. I've seen some of my colleagues do it. I just haven't had the chance to get my hands on it and try it out.
Okay.
But it was cool.
Yeah, I just want to add another fun thing about OPA is that it's quite flexible in that you can use it outside of Kubernetes. Like if you were using Terraform or say CAPI policies or like the Azure templates or Google's KRM, you could use OPA to validate those for your infrastructure as well. So it's not just Kubernetes specific. So you could, if you have a team that's good at OPA, you can apply those resources across the board to different things.
And that's another point. Most people just think automatically Kubernetes, but like, Envoy, Terraform, Docker, Kafka, tons of things that you can apply for.
Yeah, just add some information. So basically, from 1.21, pod security policies are being deprecated, and they're going to be removed from, I think, 1.25.
1.25. Yeah, 1.25. And I just put it in channel, so I'm sorry to cut you off there.
Here's a link to.
Yeah. And basically, the fun part is I think there is an OPA library for path security policies. So basically, I'm gonna send the link. So yeah, basically, I think GAPA has it solved. So it's, I think, pretty straightforward migration path for people choosing GAPA.
Nick Minus there wants to add conf test plus OPA for pipeline validation is great. We have that in place. The policies are very close to what you have in the admission plus super quick to run. Language and quirks. Language and quirks takes a bit getting used to. Thanks for that feedback, Nick. And then I've tossed the URL for conf test there. Mindrunner says conf test was also part of the recommendations. Thanks, Rachel. Cool. And then Sayam, you put a link to a video here from Alex Jones.
Yeah, that's pretty nice video on OPA. And
Okay.
also, if you want to try out OPA, you can directly install OPA via Rancher. So you can just install Rancher onto your cluster. You can enable OPA and you can write the policies. They have basic structure over there, so you can write the constraint and the policies. And yes, for CKS, it is required. So you might get a question with OPA where you have to play around a bit on the Rego. You don't. I think you don't have to write a lot of Rego, but you might have to edit some or add some, or but you have to understand that. So that for that part, you need to know OPA.
On the OPA's page, they also have like a Rego sandbox, so you can basically put together policies, and even if you make some, you can contribute them. I think that's very cool. It's actually something we're emulating for Falco, so it's it's great. I think OPA's fantastic tool.
Is that play.openpolicyagent.org? The Rego Playground. Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, I just dropped in the link.
That's cool.
And Gatekeeper also has a preset of a library, which I think Pop is referring to. I'm going to drop the link into there for that as well.
That is excellent.
So I think that OPA and Kverna will work together. Kverna is more like a mutation and sidecar injection type tool, so more than likely it'll work together with OPA. I don't see it replacing it.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Have you played around with Kverna, Chauncey?
Just briefly playing around. I'm in the Slack channel, so just monitoring it. Yes.
Excellent.
Okay, cool.
Anything else on OPA? We covered OPA a lot last year when we were doing the Office Hours blog post that we will hopefully publish someday. Our number one recommendation was most of you need OPA and you don't even know it. So definitely a good place to invest some time. Anything else OPA/Kverna related? Anyone gonna miss PSPs? Since I know someone tossed a link there. I see a lot of no's. Okay. That's good. Vivek Kumar Sahu, I hope I get that right, says I'm a sophomore. To be young. Learning Docker and Kubernetes. Can you name some beginners projects using this tool? This is a question we haven't really had asked. You type kubeadmin, you set up your first cluster. Is there a test? Is there like a little vanity program that you all use? I know, there's a lot of Hello World style.
So I have some, so I have Docker containers that run certain video game servers, including Quake 3, Battlefield 1942, and other things like that. I also have a repo, and I'll link all this, don't worry. I have a repo of kind of sample services that I've collected over the years that are amazing for getting kind of a sample sort of application up and running. And it helps you understand how things are going to deploy, what can happen, looking at logs, lifecycle, things like that. I will link all these. But really, it's kind of a sample of like what it looks like to manage real services to provide real endpoints or APIs in a cluster, which is super helpful. And a lot of them have the YAML has a lot of dense config, so you can kind of go through and see what exactly is being deployed and configured, which is helpful for learning.
Yeah, when I approach this question, I would recommend some training. There's a lot of training classes out there that will give you like little assignments that will help you kind of get kick-started creating Docker containers and the manifest to deploy them to Kubernetes cluster, or just download some Helm charts and start deploying those and inspecting how they were put together, etc.
Ooh, it looks like we're getting lots of recommendations here. Let's see who's first. Chris, you had one too. This Google Anthos config management repo page thing.
Oh,
Constraint
it's more
template
open
library.
policies.
Okay. Nick recommends pod info. This looks really interesting. It's just a page that has a bunch of pod info in your browser. I think that's cool. I've seen a similar one to that, but I can't remember its name. MindRunner recommends Spring Pet Clinic microservices. Now we're talking. I want to see a pet store for sure. And there are tons of stuff in there. That one looks meaty because it has like Grafana dashboards and stuff. There's an edX course you linked to. Rachel likes Katacoda, and Mario's tossed in all his. Quard is one I've seen used in demos a lot. QR, I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah.
I just say Quard, yeah.
Yeah, that's just useful because it gives you so much information back in return. The Google microservices demo, onlineboutique.dev. I've seen this. That's a good one.
I spent, I think, 45 minutes with the creator of it on my show just talking about the hipster demo. I think it's a fantastic thing. It literally is all of their services put together, but also like, Kubernetes, so you can run it locally as well. You don't need GKE for it.
Yeah.
It has like .NET pieces. I mean, it has every like workable language in the world. So props to you on that. Awesome stuff.
Is this the online boutique with this hipster record player?
Yeah. Yeah, I've hacked it. Like I've used it at multiple conferences to show like, hacking pods and all that stuff. It's the most comprehensive demo of like, cloud native technologies I've seen. Like it's fantastic.
That's cool. Onlineboutique.dev. That's a handy one. Pav, you've got one in here. Microservices demo.
One of the things that when you start playing with these demos, and if you decide you want to play with it in a cloud provider, a lot of these services will kickstart a load balancer. So you want to be careful that you shut it down. Otherwise, you incur unexpected costs.
Great point, man. Great point.
Actually, tips since, he's getting started. Any, I've known people who've been carrying around their like cloud provider scripts with them or whatever. Or any tools in this space to avoid that kind of unexpected costs, or like at the end of your workday, do you like religiously check your dashboards? Like, is there a, do you only use spot instances? Like what kind of, any tips there for people getting started to avoid that kind of stuff?
I use Kind locally because it gives me like a single node or a multi-node cluster. And I think that's a very good place to start. Or you could use Minikube or Minishift for, local testing, etc.
Microcates as well as another one that getting traction. But again, those three, absolutely doing it locally. And then if you want to test, there's free tiers. I think you get almost $300 from, or used to. I don't know if that's still the case with Google and others. Like there's free tiers for just kicking a cluster around and putting some spot instances. And the other thing is, got to give props to Kubernetes docs. There's example like deployments that you can use just to get the idea of how to assemble your YAML and stuff like that. So big time props to the docs team on that. And they've also, by the way, they've merged references into the documentation, which was a Herculean effort. You got to give them props for that. So yeah.
Another thing about that, if you use the Kubernetes doc site for that, when you get ready for taking your cert, you already have the muscle memory of navigating the site. So that's a plus.
Yeah.
Chauncey's on fire today.
Yeah.
Jeez, raw code, you got to step up.
And then Yogi and Borko bring up good points. Please set up budget alerts in your cloud provider. Cost limits, warnings, all of that stuff.
I'll throw one more out here. Like Katacoda.com gives you like a playground to play with Kubernetes and Docker. And like, you don't need to follow the scenarios. Like I sometimes just spin up a Kubernetes cluster in their playground and deploy my own things to it and play with it for an hour. Like that's a pretty good way of avoiding cost as well.
I was just going to say Katacoda is my go-to if I need something quick, because I don't have to care about resources on my laptop or in the cloud.
Nice.
Yeah. I just close my browser and I'm good to go. And there's also, you could use it for Terraform and some other, other things to play around with. So it's not just Kubernetes.
Oh
so
my goodness.
There's continue, Rachel. Sorry.
Also, I also just check my dashboard because I never, even if I run my script, I just need to see it that it's gone from my dashboard.
Yeah. Wow, the amount of URLs today. Great job, everybody. We got lots of great stuff. And Yogi has a personal demo app as well, which is using a lot of Spring. So if that's your wheelhouse, you definitely want to check that out. I'm checking that out now. That is definitely a bookmark. All right, and with that, we are running out of time, but I told Andre we would check out his question. He wants us to check out this pull request here. It's a 3-liner, I guess. I need context for this. Hold on, I'm going to the Are you looking for a review for this, Andre? Yep, only 3.9. Do we know what SIG this is? Yeah, are any of you in SIG-Node? You're not on SIG-Node, right? Andre, I'm going to have to follow up with you on this one because
Yeah, it looks like it's SIG-Node since it's related to
yeah,
volumes.
I see Don here. Let's talk a little bit about how to get reviews stuff in. And I know we're running out of time. I just want to spend a real minute on this. Sometimes it's very difficult to get changes into Kubernetes because at any given time there are how many? About 1,000 open pull requests. 934 today. It's been about 1,000 since I've been working on Kubernetes for 3 years. Now, the velocity of merges is always going up. So it's not like the same 1,000 sitting there. However, there are certain cases where some SIGs get backed up and some don't. So you might feel that, my change is stuck. How do I get eyeballs on it? And so I'm going to give you some recommendations on what I would do here. The first is the SIG-Node Slack channel. Each SIG has a Slack channel. In the Slack, you could say, hey, here's a pull request. The second I would do is each SIG has a weekly meeting that anybody in the public can attend. If you go to sigs.yaml, if you go to Kubernetes dev, actually, you can see the list of all the SIGs and where their public meetings are. This is one of those cases where, here you go, it's community groups. He goes, I would like to discuss the technical details of, do you think it makes sense using Signal? Still not, yeah, he's feeling alone. Yeah, so the next recommendation here is try to attend a meeting if you can. And if not, we have SIG contributor experience that might be able to help. So there's actually a channel called PR reviews in Slack for a small one like this that you can do, and you can ask for PR reviews. I will actually, after this, I'm going to see if Dims is around, and I would like to see if I can maybe sneak that in. Sometimes it's just one of those things where so many PRs, nobody hates you on purpose. One of those things, it's just we have limited amount of volunteers, and sometimes you just got to be a squeaky, annoying wheel. Another good one is the mailing list, because that's kind of asynchronous posts as well. Sometimes posting on there might help, but after this, I will definitely see if I can get you a review on that. Any of you try to do a PR that gets stuck on something? Or done a PR in general? All right, that's okay. All right, now we're going to do my favorite part of the show, is a t-shirt giveaway. So give me 1 second. 1, 2, 6.
Panelists are not eligible for it, so Rocco, sorry. You're going to have to find your own t-shirt here, buddy.
Yeah. I'm rolling it. I didn't know Google now lets you just roll random dice. We had a script for this. We had a script before, but then I found it's just easier to count everyone's questions.
Already put that together before the call. Nice job, buddy.
All right, Mind Runner. I'd like to give you a Kubernetes t-shirt today. Anyone wearing their Kubernetes t-shirt today? We always give them away and forget.
Mine's in the wash.
And Android.
Yeah, mine's in the wash, yeah. But I do have a Coral West hat. Oh, come on, Zoom.
That's nice.
From the 2017 KubeCon. when they had a massive booth and were giving away free hats. And this thing is fantastic, and it makes me look super hipster. So
All
I
right.
mean,
And Andre, I'd like to give you a t-shirt today. I will DM both of you tomorrow after the show. And Yogi says, me. Yogi, you've given us a lot of great URLs. So PM me and I will give you another Kubernetes t-shirt. So with that, panel, thank you so much. This has been great. Anybody else, anything to add? Anything? Y'all have a good time? First timers, how you like it?
for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of
Great
fun.
question.
Chauncey, you had a good time?
I did. I hope to join again. Hopefully,
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so the way it works, just volunteer. The Monday of, I say, hey, who wants to come on? And whoever shows up, if we get more than 3 people, we do a show. And then we do like to keep this group going with new people and get a bunch of diverse viewpoints and things like that. So if you're doing something out there, I think Pavalas actually started, just popping URLs in the channel and things like that. And eventually I just dared him to come on, and here he is. You could PM me. I'm Castro Jo. And if not, I'll follow up with you, Yogi. With that, we will finish. Panel, stick around. Everybody else, thank you very much. We will see you. It's always the 3rd Wednesday of every month. And we will see you all in February. Welcome back. Have a happy 2021.